Welcome, comrades. It's really good to speak to you all again. It's been almost 3 weeks since the last time I got to speak with you in this format directly. I did a stream 2 weeks ago with Eddie, but this is, of course, a different type of format when I get to speak to you all directly, and it's not just a matter of you hearing a conversation between me and Eddie. A lot has transpired in the last 2, 3 weeks. We, of course, had our party's first national convention held in Chicago. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm also going to highlight some ACP notable news and events that were done by various chapters from around the country. I'm going to talk about a couple things in geopolitics, not many, mainly the martyrdom of Sinwar, what it means, contrast it and compare and contrast it with other forms of revolutionary martyrdoms within the last century and within our tradition of Marxism, Leninism. And as always, you're free to ask me any questions you want. I feel that I must mention, as I always do, that this is a people's funded institute. So if you have the means and appreciate our work, you can always help us financially, either by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/MidwesternMarx, or by asking us questions through the means of Super Chat, which is also the way that you guarantee that your question is going to be answered. So without further ado, let's get into today's program.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: "You look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard."
Oh man, that song always gets me going. Shout out to Jesus Motorcycle, as always, for that beautiful intro song. For those of you that were at the convention, you had the pleasure of seeing another one of Jesus's projects, which he did for the convention. We played it, and it was absolutely beautiful, extremely moving. He's an incredibly talented person, and we can only hope that he continues to produce at this speed, and that when the party has funds, we can hire him to have this be his specific job, because he's definitely a someone who contributes a lot to the cause. And the aesthetic artistic dimension is often not talked about, but it's amongst the most important in revolutionary movements. You can't think about the Cuban Revolution, if you're familiar with it, without thinking about La Nueva Trova, the sort of folk revolutionary music that's attached to it. It's hard to think about the coming to power of Salvador Allende in Chile. It's hard to think about the revolutionary process in the 60s and 70s in Chile without thinking about Victor Jara, of course, the great singer of the revolution. So art is essential in these processes, and it's often overlooked. And, with someone like Jesus Motorcycle on our side, I think that overlooking and that absence of cultural production is definitely going to be combated. So shout out to him. Thank you so much, Lane, 2006, for the $20 super chat. Thank you so much, comrade. ACP, Midwest of Marx Infrared Rising. That is absolutely what is going on. I'd be lying to you if I said that all of the things that we have been able to achieve, indeed, over the last 3-4 months since the party launched, we were expecting to achieve as quick as we have. In terms of every metric that we have laid, our cadre have far surpassed all of our expectations. The influence that the party has been exerting in the medias and other realms around the world. I mean, we have videos talking about the party convention and the launch of the party in Chinese sites like Bilibili that have millions of views. I've seen some of these videos. I've looked through the comments. I've translated them. The vast majority of them are extremely positive, so do not undermine the efforts that our party is doing. It's easy to get sucked into the silo of the American left and to only hear those voices. But the reality is that, our efforts at the American Communist Party give a lot of hope to people from around the world, in the global south, in the parts of the world that are being strangled by American imperialism. And these are parts of the world where our approach to the class struggle is just evident for them. It's the approach that the ones that have been victorious have taken. One of the main lessons that I took away from Venezuela, the trip I took for the election, where I got to speak with dozens and dozens of revolutionary leaders from countries where, the communist struggle is much more advanced, to countries where socialist and workers' parties are in power. One of the things that it reaffirmed was that our critique of the entity that calls itself the left in the US is on the money, is completely on the money. And we would have to be American exceptionalists to think that, that the things that are evidently true and have been empirically confirmed as true in the struggles of other countries are somehow different in America, that America is somehow the exception. So just understand that what the work that our party is doing is giving a whole lot of hope. Just 2 days ago, there was a site called Global Communist Parties or something like that. It was tied to the Chinese Central Normal University. I believe that's the official name, but it's a major university in Wuhan that shared the article that the comrades from RTSG did about the national convention. So, I mean, the work that we're doing is getting seen by our comrades across the world, and it's definitely appreciated. For those that were in the national convention, you heard the reports that Comrade International Secretary Christopher Halali gave from more than 60 parties from around the world. Some of them parties that are involved in the Palestinian resistance and the axis of resistance against Zionist colonialism, backed up, of course, by American imperialism. Some of them communist parties from countries where socialism reigned for decades. Some of them from parties that are in power. So we weren't able to go through all of the messages that were sent to us, congratulating us on our first convention, because we would have had to have a 10-hour section just for Halali to do that. But it's very special. And for those interested in reading all of the international greetings we received, they will be published in Red America, which is the official journal of the American Communist Party. The first issue is going to be released at the end of the month, and it's going to be a monthly journal. So you subscribe to it, and every month you get an issue of cutting-edge theory from not just the theorists of the ACP, but leading Marxist thinkers from around the world. In the first issue, we have an excellent article from a comrade professor in China. And we already have articles planned from international theorists within the Marxist-Leninist tradition for months. So it's going to be very special. It's a project that I'm going to be spearheading. For the comrades that are in the party, the electronic copy is going to be made freely available to all of you, but the physical copy, which we encourage you to subscribe to, is going to be something that you have to sign up for. And for those that are not in the party, if you still want to keep up with the party's theoretical literature, you're free to also subscribe. The ebook version will be available for subscription, but it will be pennies on the dollar of what you have to pay in order to get some bourgeois academic journal subscription. Thank you so much to Popers, who I got to meet over there at the convention. Shout out to Popers. Popers is someone who has been on a journey of weight loss and has lost, I think it was like 25, 30 pounds. He looks amazing. He showed us the before and after pictures, and I'm very happy to see the examples that people make in their individual lives for what happens when you put communist discipline at the foreground, when you put it forward. Because losing weight is difficult. It's not easy to break through old habits, and when we do that, we sharpen our ability to be disciplined, and that's central to what it means to be a communist. There was at the 100th anniversary of the founding of the CPC in 2021. I remember watching Chinese national television, and they were interviewing a historian from the party, and a historian that focuses on the history of the Chinese party. And they asked him, what has been the most important part of the party's success, both before and after the founding of the People's Republic of China? And he said one word. He said discipline. Discipline has been the most important part. It's the same answer that Lenin gives us in Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. He starts the first few chapters by talking about the importance of discipline for the successes of the Bolshevik Revolution. So when I see comrades who have the discipline to lose weight, to live a healthier lifestyle, that means that we're on the right track. We're creating the sorts of habits and the virtues that are essential for what it means to be a communist. To be a communist is to be an individual basically from the future. I've used this metaphor a few times, but to be a communist is basically to be the incarnation of a portal into the future. You have to be able to embody the best of what it means to be a human being. You have to be cultured, not just the best of the Marxist-Leninist tradition, but the best of the history of the best ideas and thinkers. As Lenin writes in his speech to the youth leagues, we have to be able to drink from the fountain of knowledge that humanity has produced. In terms of character, you have to be someone that is honorable, that lives up to your commitments, someone that is capable of being with the masses, of helping them. You have to embody the spirit that I see embodied in chapters from around the country that are going out there to serve their communities, to clean up hazardous waste, to provide clothing to the homeless, as we did in the Day of Action following our party's national convention, to provide food for the homeless and do all other forms of community service that integrate us into existing communities and remove the myth that has been created in this country that communists are a bunch of scary freaks aiming to take away your property and just oppress you with a big old state we're going to bring into existence. That's not at all what communism is about. It's not without reason that the ruling class has to invest a whole lot of his most dearest loved entity, which is money, in order to create these institutions of anti-communism, some of which have a so-called leftist veneer, even though there's nothing leftist about them, and others which are more directly in their apologetics of the dominant order. But thank you so much, Popers, for the two Midwestern Marx membership subscriptions. Thank you as well to Boston. Shout out to Boston. One of the things we'll be watching today is the interview that he did at the site of I think a MAGA rally or some sort of Trump event, where he held his own and did a great job in putting forth the positions of the Communist Party and drawing that necessary line between what the ACP is doing and what the failed and CIA fabricated compatible left of the last few decades has done. We can't succeed until we allow the American people to know that that idea that they have in their heads of what a communist is, that has been fabricated by McCarthyite anti-communism, but also made into a reality through programs like the Congress for Cultural Freedom that directly distorted what it meant to be a communist, that destroyed the previous organizations that were communist in character in this country. That delineation between the fake left, that's not left at all, it's not any more left than, you know, a chicken putting a duck bill can be called a duck. You know, it's got nothing to do with the left. Left is the forces that stand on the side of progress and moving the train of history forward. We, the Communist Party, are the left. All the other things that call themselves left, irrespective of what positions they have on social issues, the question of whether they're left or not boils down to whether they're in favor of advancing the train of history, and the vehicle through which we advance that trajectory in our country is the American Communist Party. Anyone who sides against the American Communist Party cannot, in good conscience, be called left. So shout out. Where the hell did that come from? Okay, that was an interestingly timed technological glitch. There it goes again. I don't know if you guys heard that or if it's just me, but it was a bunch of it was clipped from the convention where the comrades were chanting ACP, 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 which, by the way, was extremely moving, guys. It was a very emotional experience to get up there and see what just happened. Yeah, I had the background, one of the links that I have to react to, and I guess it played out of nowhere, but it played at a good time. It was a good time for us to hear the chants ACP. But like I was saying, those chants were from the convention. It was an extremely high energy convention. I think it provided a revitalization of our efforts. And for me, at least, and I know that some of the other speakers share the same sentiment, going up there and seeing a couple hundred of you chanting ACP, ACP, committed with fire in your eyes to this struggle. It was a very emotional and moving experience. And you guys are all the embodiment of the potential that this party has to actually change the trajectory of this country and to direct it into a society that is actually of, by, and for the people, which is all socialism is. You know, we don't need to get all that complicated when we're speaking in public. All socialism is something the American people already accept. Government of, by, and for the people. Let's have society, culture, the economy, governmental institutions, the educational institutions, the media, the entertainment industry. Let's have all of this function in a way that's aimed at promoting the well-being of the American people, not the profits of a small group of parasitic capitalists. Okay, so I want to start by showing a few images from the ACP convention. Let's see. So these are images from our first national convention, which was held on October 12th, Saturday, October 12th in Chicago. Let me see if I can open this. The setup was beautiful. Shout out especially to our Chicago chapter for all the work that you did in putting this together. Shout out specifically to comrades David and Corey that were amongst the most involved in this process. Shout out as well to Politburo member Slava for putting this together, and everyone else from the Chicago chapter and beyond that had an essential and necessary role in ensuring that this this convention was able to happen. Shout out to Daniel, our very own producer here at the Midwestern Marx Institute, for the work that he did as the audio person for the convention, which he did a great job for. Here are some other images. This is the entirety at that moment of the Politburo and Executive Board. We have since been able to add, I believe, 3 Politburo members. We still have a position open in the Politburo that leadership is deciding, who to award to and at what time. But at the time of the convention, this was the leadership of the party. A lot of individuals with the skills necessary to play an important role in the development of the class struggle in our country. This is Haas speaking. Haas's presentation, for those of you that that weren't at the convention and that weren't able to see it, was marvelous. The presentation, the first one he gave, the introductory speech, was amazing. And then the presentation he gave when going over the party program was also extremely emotional. After every single party program point, there was massive chants, ACP, ACP, ACP. It was a very moving experience. For those that haven't, make sure to check out the party's constitution and party program, especially if you're in the party. You need to familiarize yourself with this information. But if you're outside of the party and are considering joining it, it's important that you check out the constitution and the party program. I think that if you consider yourself a communist in the context of the US, you're very much going to appreciate the party program. It's as a comprehensive a program I have ever seen to address the issues that we have before us in our country and in our specific context. All of those videos, by the way, will be posted shortly on the ACP YouTube. So if you weren't able to make it, you'll still be able to watch. That was the noise that you were hearing beforehand. As I said, it was a very moving experience to see, a couple hundred people chanting our party's initials. The Constitution and the party program were passed without any objections. We encouraged as much as we could for people to have objections if they had any, but no one had any, which was an interesting experience. We weren't expecting that. We were expecting at least a few people to bring up, hey, we could have done this better, or could we add this? Could we remove this? And then, had a democratic consultation discussion process there. But everyone was completely sold with the Constitution and the party program, which are things that we have been working for months. We're very happy with how they came out. And the comments that we have received from our comrades abroad as far as the Constitution and the party program have been very, very favorable. So, it was the first time that any of us had to craft something of this nature. And I think, not to get too self-congratulatory, but I think we did a pretty darn good job. Okay. Shout out to JK, who I got to meet at the convention and speak to yesterday. He zoomed in from his job in rail. He was wearing the helmet. He looked like a miner from the turn of the 20th century. But he zoomed in and he did his duty yesterday in yesterday's meeting. So shout out to JK, who's an embodiment of the blue collar and proletarian character of our organization. For those familiar with the critique that the Institute has levied on the old non-left left, one of the major criticisms has been the PMC character of this left. For us, if the struggle for socialism is the struggle for the working class's hegemony and conquest of political power, ultimately, we can't do that with organizations that are filled with, just PMC people. That's not to say that you can't have professional managerial stratum folks within communist parties. We do. We have our fair share of professors and lawyers and engineers, and other professions. But the base has to be the working class, blue collar work, the front rankers, as Henry Winston called them, which are those that are working in the key industries that are at the center of capitalist production and the capitalist mode of life in general. And last I heard from our director of personnel, Kyle Pettis, around 70 to 80% of our party, so most of our party, comes from that sector of society, from the blue collar working class. So, and JK is an archetype of that. So shout out to you, brother. Shout out to Maddie, who I got to meet as well from Texas. One of the things that we're going to be reacting today is a short little documentary that the comrades from Texas did with an individual by the name of Florence, who's been helping her community for decades without any pay. Shout out to Sayab Shorty. How you doing, comrade? Shout out to everyone in the comments. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, make sure to like the stream. Make sure to share it. As you can probably infer, the algorithms of the capitalist class aren't the biggest friends of communists. Why would they? They're right in not promoting our stream from the standpoint of their own class interest. We don't blame them for giving us the sort of treatment that we expect them to give us if they're smart. But we do have to combat it, because social media is one of the most dominant fields of ideological struggle. And if they're not going to push us to your coworkers and neighbors through the means of the algorithm themselves, then it's up to you, the people that are watching this program, that consider valuable information to be disseminated in these live broadcasts. It's up to you to share these streams in your social medias with your neighbors and coworkers and friends. So don't just be a passive listener of our streams. Be an active one. Make sure that you play a role in getting the ideas out there. And I know a lot of you do. Most of you do. That's why when we think of Midwestern Marx, it's not just myself, Eddie, Noah, Kyle, and Danny. It's also the audience, which is extremely active and that has played an essential role in getting us here, not just as an institute, but also given the role that we play in the party as a party as well. So the day after the National Convention, we had a day of action in Humboldt Park in Chicago. Let me see if I find it here. There we go. It was very special. There was, I think, around 150 to 200 of us there. We fed the homeless in this park. We gave them clothing. There was, I think, 400 to 500 jackets that were given away. Most of them were able to be given away to the homeless inside the park. Some of them were given away to homeless in the surrounding area. I myself went with Comrade Corey from the Chicago chapter, with Comrade Jesus and Comrade Eddie, to give out coats to the homeless in the surrounding areas. And it's a very special experience, getting to talk to people, getting to understand the individualized forms through which the system that brings everyone down manifests itself in the lives of all of these individuals who are in the position that they're in, more cases than not because of any moral failing, but because of the pressures of a decaying capitalist society that we live under. And the reality is that the condition that they're in is one that it's not far off from where most Americans are at. Most Americans are closer to the conditions of existence of the people we helped in Humboldt Park than to, some upper middle class lawyers making $200,000 a year. Statistics show us that anywhere from 70 to 80% of Americans are a lost paycheck away from losing everything, from losing their homes and all the other things that are necessary for to have a comfortable life in the 21st century. So Most Americans are a lost paycheck away from ending up in parks like Humboldt Park. So it's important to serve these people because these are folks that have fallen, a lot of them from the ranks of the proletariat, for systemic reasons, not for moral failings. And, some of them even had jobs, but it was just impossible to keep up with things like rent, even with a job. So, here are some pictures of Slava. Again, shout out to Slava who cooked, I believe, all of the food that we were able to give out, warm food on a cold day. This was the picture that we took with our communist army in service of our American working class. And it was very special, man. I was going around the park, and in every corner of that massive park, it's one of the biggest parks in the whole country. In every corner of that park, there was ACP people either cleaning the park or serving some of the homeless that were in encampments there. So very special. I wasn't in that picture, and neither was Eddie, because we were doing we were giving out food and coats on the car. I'm looking for a picture to pull up. So this was myself. This was one of the pictures. Handing out coats. We put a bunch of coats on the back of the truck, and we just went around to different areas that had a lot of homeless people, and we gave those out. We gave soup as well, and Gatorades and water bottles, and it was very special. A few people asked us, what organization we're from, and we got to share a few words about the ACP, and everyone was thankful. And this is the importance of realizing that the way we're going to win the American people is not through, argumentation and providing the best arguments. The way we're going to win them is through deeds, through serving them, through showing them in action what communism is all about, which is, fundamentally about serving the people, serving our communities, and putting the interests of working people in our communities at the level of supremacy, not the interests of capital, not the interests of companies and big banks and investment firms. The interests of the people should be what is primary. So we were able to do that in some of our activities. I'm going to show you a couple pictures that I think haven't been made public. This one, I think, was with the Institute. This was the Institute component of the party, with the exclusion of Kyle, who wasn't there. Of course, as director of personnel, he was doing a million things. But here's Danny Shaw, myself, Eddie, and Noah. And this is a picture of my speech, which, as I mentioned, we're going to be rolling out all the video clips from the convention fairly soon, within the next couple of days. But okay. Thank you so much, Comrade JK, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate it very much. As I mentioned, JK is a blue-collar working man, so the fact that you take a little bit of your salary to give to us is very special and very much appreciated. Thank you so much, Comrade. I had a couple people tell me that. I'm working on getting some of the other comrades more three-piece suits. I don't know why. I just think three-piece suits look so much better. By the way, I'm sorry if you hear a difference in my voice. I've been basically flirting with a cold for the last 5 days. It feels like my body knows how much I have to work, and the fact that it cannot afford to take 2 to 3 days off for a cold, and it's kind of just like dividing the experience of like a very intense 2-3 day cold into like a week, where the cold is not that bad but still visible. So if you hear a difference in my voice, that's what it's rooted in. Comrade Mouse SF says, I don't know much about the ACP, but would love to know their positions on 1, revolution, and 2, workers strike back. Well, on revolution, we're a communist party. So we definitely believe in revolution, and all revolution is the conquest of state power from one class, the transference of state power from one class to another. So in our context, revolution means creating a state of affairs where it's the working class that has ultimate supremacy. So the creation of what's called in technical Marxist-Leninist language, a dictatorship of the proletariat, where power to dictate what happens in society is in the hands of working people. So, you can't be a communist if you're not in favor of that. So, of course, we're in favor of that. As far as Workers Strike Back, I don't know much about them. I know that they're connected with some of our friends at the Revolutionary Blackout Network, who are also doing great work. And as always, we're open to collaborating with any other force in the left who's doing good work. And everything I've seen from them, at least from the RBN wing of it, has been positive. So shout out to them. Let's see. Sounds like Midwestern Marks could use an expansion of their podcasting trio. Yeah, we want to include more comrades from the ACP on the Institute in terms of bringing them on to speak and do conversations and interviews. I think Noah was planning on doing that with some of the comrades, specifically those involved with the Hurricane Helene effort. Shout out to Bree on that front, who we gave an award of Hero of the Party for the efforts that she's done in spearheading the Hurricane Helene relief. We also gave Hero of the Party awards to David and Corey in Chicago for the efforts that they have had in keeping that chapter together and overcoming adversity and obstacles that were thrown on our path very early on. Need more women on the streams. We have a whole show that's done by a woman comrade, not necessarily because she's a woman, but because she's incredibly talented, and her programs are amongst the best that you can find online. It's Bridget from the probably canceled podcast, which as of the last 5 or 6 episodes is a podcast that is a collaborative effort with the Institute. So we've been posting all of those, and her show's amazing. If you haven't seen her show, she just did an episode with Alex McKay from the Marx Engels Lenin Institute in Britain, which was really, really good. And she's done many episodes which are very special. She did one recently interviewing her mom and her mom's trajectory from Bush Republican to the organic base of MAGA, the base that's extremely critical and that on key issues ends up accepting the positions that us communists take, even if they don't go as far as to, accept the label of communism or everything. So make sure to check those out if you haven't. But I want to go ahead and show you this amazing video that was done by ACP Texas, who went out to help an individual by the name of Florence that, although they're not in the party and probably not in terms of their self-classification a communist, they embody the best of what it means to be a communist, the sort of devotion and service to our class, to our people. So this, well, I'm not going to give it away. I'll let you watch the I'll let you watch the great video that the comrades in Texas did, and shout out to all of you for this amazing work. And yeah, let's get it.
How would I describe myself?
Yeah, your role in the community.
Or how would somebody else describe me?
Yeah.
That I'm crazy.
This is Florence Ponziano, the founder of Florence's Comfort House in Austin's Montopolis neighborhood. For decades, the Comfort House has been a safe haven for local kids to get a good meal, education, and an outlet to live their childhoods without the stress of economic and social decline.
I live and try to make the kids happy and have a good childhood and let them come to me when they have problems and see if I can help them. If I can't, we find some way to make it better.
Florence is a beacon of hope for Montopolis, dedicating her life to give kids a sense of purpose and give them the resources to take charge of their futures.
The kids should get up in the morning and have something to eat before they go to school so they can learn. If they can't eat, how can they learn? We need good educations for these kids. We need good health care. And where is it in Texas? Where's our health care? All this money they're supposed to have, the richest state, got shipped. The kids got poor health care. And they say, oh, there's no hunger in Texas. That's bullshit. There's hunger in Texas. Come to my hood.
Florence's work for Montopolis hit a roadblock last year. Diagnosed with breast cancer, Florence underwent rounds and rounds of radiation, a double mastectomy, and continues to face lingering sickness. This didn't stop her, though.
And my great-grandson, Smoochie, I would have probably gave up when I had this cancer. Because I was so sick and all these radiation treatments, 50 treatments. I was so miserable and so sick. 81 years old, it's hard. But I had my baby, and you know what he tells me? I got to go spend the night with Nanny or they're going to steal her. I did this all my life since I was a young girl. I marched in Gary, Indiana, because I believed in it. I believed everybody is equal, and it doesn't matter what color we are or what station in life,
How long has Florence?
30 years.
30 years of
hard work, no pay, no salary, just love.
Throughout her years, Florence hasn't relied on any institutions to support her work. Police work in Florence's neighborhood has been hit or miss, both in terms of presence and impact.
This is what being a communist is all about. It's the spirit of service to your community. It's not the talk, man. You can talk a big game, but when it comes to serving the people, you're nowhere to be found, or you're persona non grata. This is what being a communist is all about, man. It's about serving the people indeed. We have this tendency in the U.S. because of American individualism and idealism to think that things are what they reflexively categorize themselves as. The communist is the individual who puts on Twitter the hammer and sickle. The capitalist is the one that doesn't do that. And we classify and understand the world not on the basis of the actual processes in which things exist in, but on the basis of how things classify themselves. And if you've read any of your Marx, it's at the beginning of the German ideology, one of the most essential texts for understanding the Marxist worldview. Marx and Engels write that you can't understand the world if you just take what people say about themselves at face value. The young Hegelians could have considered themselves as revolutionary as they wanted, but were they? Well, you can make the argument that at a specific period they were, but at the moment that Marx and Engels are writing, they weren't. There was something much more profound and revolutionary that had to be put forth. You couldn't just take what they said at face value. You had to critically interrogate it and measure it up to the reality of the actions that they're doing. And when you see people call themselves communists, make their whole profile identity be surrounded by the label of being a communist or being a socialist, but they don't do any of this. They don't do the educational work to educate other people on socialism, to help the people that they're interacting with online develop a higher level of consciousness, question the dominant narratives of the existing state of affairs. If they don't go out and actually serve the people and do the work that our chapters are doing around the country and in Canada as well, they're not communists. But when someone is doing that work, when someone is devoted to the cause of bettering the lives of the people in their community and is cognizant of how the government has left all of them behind, of how the government's concerns are those of the elite of this country, the financial elite, those who control what we produce, how we produce it, the media, everything else, the big banks, the investment firms like BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street. A person that realizes that and that has that commitment to service in their community is tenfold times the communist than the person who calls himself a communist but does none of that. Especially tenfold times the communist than the person who calls himself a communist, and all they ever do is sit down on Twitter and ankle bite people who are actually doing the work of communists, like the ACP is. This woman, interviewed by the ACP Texas chapter and helped by the ACP Texas chapter in ways that no one else had before, is much more of a communist than all of those Twitter leftists who might post pictures of Kim Jong-un and Stalin or whatever the case might be, but who in actual deed, all they ever do is attack the real Communist Party of this country. So again, we can't think in a way that accepts at face value the way things classify themselves, the way people classify themselves. We have to judge them by their deed. And the deeds of this woman are communist deeds. And guess what? They're also the deeds of how all of the Abrahamic traditions have urged people to act like. Just like we can point at her and say, this is how a communist should be, a genuine Christian who's in tune with the spirit of Jesus and not just the letter of specific texts and dogmatic interpretations of the Christian tradition or just loyal following of the Catholic Church, a real Christian in tune with the life of Jesus and aiming to enact his revolutionary teachings, will look at her and say, that is a Christian right there. Why? Because we're dealing here with a fundamental distinction of values. You know, what values are you going to put at the forefront? What values are you going to elevate to the level of supremacy? People or profit? And in the Christian tradition, as well as other religious traditions, it's usually people that are put forth. And what's special, I think, about the Christian tradition, and I don't mean to sound too Zizek'ian or Hegelian here in my analysis, is that in the Christian tradition, the community of people, the Corpus Christi, is itself God. When God is elevated to the value of the most supreme, that God that is elevated is the human community. Look at any of the major Catholic theologians. When they speak about God, God is synonymous with love in community. When Jesus comes and says, you know, we will forgive them of their sins, what is sin? Look at the etymology of what sin means. Sin means debt. Jesus was a revolutionary against the creditor class, the equivalent of the capitalist, parasitic capitalist of his time. So a Christian can look at Florence and say, she's a real Christian. And just like us communists can look at her and say, she's a real communist. Because, as has become evident in the 21st century to a lot of communists, what communism represents is this conscious development of the most sacred traditions of humanity, of the most sacred insights and wisdoms of the most profound forms of thinking about the human experience and how to improve that human experience, of what sorts of values we have to put forward in our life in order to live flourishing, fulfilling lives. And whether you go to the religious and theological traditions, or whether you go to philosophy, as Robespierre did, you know, shortly before he is killed, Robespierre gives a speech where he says specifically that what they're building with the French Revolution is an incarnation of the best ideas, basically of the rational kernels of the history of political philosophy and philosophy in general. That's something that's true of socialism. What socialism actualizes is the best insights of the best minds in the history of humanity, whether they come from the tradition of philosophy or religion or whatever else. So this way of being, an Aristotelian that is genuine about their Aristotelianism, can say, oh, what she is doing is living the life of virtue. She's living the life that's conducive to eudaimonia and genuine happiness, rooted in human fulfillment and service and virtue. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. It's very easy to operate with this bourgeois conception that seeks to separate Marxism as an intellectual tradition and worldview from the insights of the past. And although it is true that it is something new and a new worldview, it is new precisely in the sense that it is able to bring within it the best of the past traditions, and that includes the history of philosophy, Christianity, and everything else. Okay, let's keep going.
The same can be said for other forms of neighborhood governance.
The values that a community should have, I think they should work together more. I mean, we have a neighborhood thing and all that, but you always have a couple people that say they run everything and do nothing. I have not gotten grants from no government. I haven't accepted any of them. My friends are the ones that support me.
By the way, on the subject of Christian socialism, Gustavo Gutierrez just died yesterday, one of the more notable liberation theologists out of Latin America. Someone whose work I encountered early on in my undergraduate development, and who was very influential for me to move out of the very dogmatic new atheist position I had in terms of religion. So rest in power to that comrade.
It's getting really bad. They're starting to rob and stuff again because we don't have enough. But I don't know. I think the people should make a difference, not police. You know what I mean? Because what do? Fight us? They go after the wrong person. Come on, they hold a gun to my head one time, a cop.
Really?
In front of my house.
Montopolis is a proud neighborhood, though long isolated by the Colorado River and highways that surround it.
That brings up the question, right? If someone is doing this amazing work, and yet the police somehow manages to go up to them and put a gun to their head, who do the police serve? They might claim that their purpose is to serve communities. They do so explicitly. This is what they claim. But again, we can't just take things that are claimed by individuals at face value. We must critically interrogate it. And what the Marxist tradition teaches us is that the police, along with other institutions of violence within the capitalist class, are fundamentally the armed bodies of men of the ruling capitalist class. They're there not to serve communities. The police is not there to serve Florence and her service to the community. They are there to uphold the interests of capital. That's what they're there for. That's why part of the party program of the American Communist Party is to abolish, or better yet, to sublate the current form that policing takes. Instead of these organs of these armed bodies of men of the ruling class that are disconnected fully from our communities, we will have people's militias, where the people themselves will be armed and capable of defending their communities from any threat that arises, and of doing so through the means that are sensible and commonsensical in accordance with the communities themselves.
Often labeled a, quote, island of poverty.
When I came to this neighborhood, it was full of drugs and fighting and chaos and no structure.
Though crime has dropped and services have improved in the city, poverty still grips an increasingly divided neighborhood.
Could you describe some of the changes you've seen in the neighborhood over the last 30 years?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, some are good and some I don't like.
Yeah.
That happens, with gentrification. I mean, they want to get rid of tiny, chunky houses because they think it lowers down their house value, But I'm not going nowhere. They offered me $600,000 for it. I'm not selling my land. Yeah, because I still have kids in the neighborhood that need me. I still have homeless.
Over the years, Florence has selflessly stepped up to the plate to meet the needs of her community. In honor of her many sacrifices and in an effort to extend our resources to this community, ACP Texas decided to assist Florence in revitalizing and maintaining her home.
You know that we're warriors for good, right?
Yep.
Warriors for love, warriors for kindness, warriors that give our kids a better life. And we love America. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Don't.
Immediately canceled by all of the left. Immediately canceled. As soon as she said, "We love America," the left was like, forget everything else. Forget the service she's done. Forget her role in the civil rights revolution, the Third American Revolution. Forget all of that. She's a settler. She upholds and loves America. I mean, this is why, once you escape the silo that is the American left, and you make the measure of your success and acceptance not what leftists on Twitter are saying, whom we should not care about, or care, not any more than we do what some random fascists are saying, because at the end of the day, in a lot of their actions, that's how they behave. We should make the standard for the feedback loops that we actually care about be the reaction of regular people. And this is how regular people, the most committed and spontaneously aligned with the communist spirit, this is how they think about America. Because when they think of America, they're not thinking of the invasion of Iraq. They're not thinking of the funding of genocides and the killings of tens of millions of people that American imperialism has done. They realize that's the other America. That's the America of the elite who don't represent the real deep America of the American people, of the traditions of the American people, of the most progressive parts of the American tradition. If the American people can spontaneously come to realize this distinction that Martin Luther King Jr. draws between the two Americas, the one abounding in wealth and the one that is in poverty, how the hell are we communists not going to be able to have an analysis of America itself as a social totality that is cognizant of these two aspects, of the aspect of, yes, the evil imperialist and capitalist and planter class from the 19th and 18th century, but also of the people that have fought for America, that have shaped it into what the better parts of it are. That's the real America. There's a point that Xiang Weiwei makes when he interviews Jackson Hinkle. He says, you guys have a deep state. We have a deep people. And it's, well, yeah, we have a deep state, but we also have a deep people. We have a deeper America. And Florence represents that deeper America that has long been in contradiction with the parasitic elite who do nothing for the people except exploit them and entrap them in debt slavery, while periodically sending our brothers and sisters abroad to try to kill people whom they have more in common with than the assholes, than the parasites who sent them there in the first place. That deep America, rooted in the experience of working class people and poor people in this country, those are the sectors of society whose opinion we should care about. What they think about us, we should care about. We can't be like the leftists, who in the face of those people thinking of them as freaks and nut jobs whom they have nothing to do with, just mockingly turn their head and say, okay, I don't care. I'm above them. I'm better than them. No, we have to be with the people. And we win them over, not by going over there like a preacher and talking down to them condescendingly, but by doing what ACP Texas did, which is helping. We don't need to make them communists. We just need them to understand that we're the only political organized force that actually represents them. And if at some point we stop bringing in the results, they would be right in losing faith in us. Their faith in us should be premised on our results. That's why the essence of our party, the essence of the ACP, the metrics through which we judge the chapters and cadre and leadership itself is based on, can you bring in the results? And this is a very American pragmatist way of doing it. Is what you're doing working? And if it's not, go back to the drawing board. And if someone can go to the drawing board and come up with better results, they're going to have your position. That goes for all of us.
Don't press us out because we don't think like you or you think differently. I don't press you out. I don't look at what you believe in. Just believe in good and don't worry about anybody else, What you guys did for me today is unbelievable. I mean, look at the magic, probably saved my roof from being ruined, and it's really a blessing, honey. It's really light that you brought to me, and I'm going to never forget this,
Florence's work transcends any one project or one person saved or one career made. Her work is motivated by something deeper, an understanding that personal success is given meaning through its impact on a community. Many of the children Florence served decades ago are now dedicated to living a legacy of service to their communities, their local economies, and their families.
They got to be happy what they want to choose to do, but they got to choose something that will make them happy and healthy and have a good family. This is what's important to me, that these kids have a chance to make a choice. And when they make that right choice, watch out for them, because they're going to win and be on top of that hurdle. They're not going to be a creep. They're not going to be a crook. They're going to be working and have a good life, you know?
This is so important. This is so important because the society that we live in is so individualistic that it reduces our humanity by forcing us to think of personal success as an individual affair. And the reality is, again, as all of the most sacred religious traditions and philosophical traditions let us know, that we succeed as individuals only in connection to the role that we play in allowing our communities to flourish. We can only live fulfilling lives as individuals when we create the conditions to allow the flourishing of other people around us as well. You do not have genuine happiness when you're happy and everyone around you is miserable. That's not genuine happiness. If everyone around you is struggling and driven by vices, and you're the only one that's trying to have virtues, that's not genuine virtue that you have. We don't exist as these Leibnizian monads that are fully disconnected to everything else, but somehow functioning in harmony with the whole. No, we're not monads. We're not atoms. We're not, Robinson Crusoes. We're individuals who obtain our meaning and our specific determinate characteristics as individuals only in and through community. And these are communities that we exist in a dialectical and referential relationship with. We're not just passive in the sense that we just become what the community makes of us. We also influence the community. And for genuine human flourishing for the individual, it is mandatory that you also help those around you, that you serve your community. So when she's talking about success and she's bringing to the fore the sort of individuals that she has been able to make and how they have been able to go on and help others in their orbits, that breaks the logic of capitalist individualism that's hammered into all of us from a very young age in this country, and that is fundamentally antisocial, let alone anti-communist. Thank you so much, Pranav, comrade, for the $10 super chat. Seek truth from facts, let 100 flowers bloom. Absolutely. That seek truth from facts quote from Deng is one of my favorites. It's one of the readings in the reading list for the ACP members. So thank you so much, comrade.
And knowing what's important in life. The success stories they're not presidents or not big, but they have jobs, they're working, they're raising their family, and they're living a good life. And that's a success to me. We don't need lawyers and doctors. We need kids that have good jobs, I'm into making this world a better place like it used to be, when only one person worked in the family and the mother stayed home and raised their kids. And they didn't live in a house that was too big for them, or they didn't have too many cars, because she stayed home and took care of her kids. That's why America was great. We're losing that side of us, that material things are more important than family life. And I'm going to stay like I am always.
Yesterday's America is paved over by new conditions, new ways of understanding social life, new economic realities. We can't return to yesterday's America. We want to stride valiantly into tomorrow's. And to do so, we have to remember the foundations that made our country strong. The working people, the communities that give meaning and life to our country. Much of the work that we take on today will be helping tomorrow's Americans make sense of these foundations and seize them for a new America. And like Florence has stepped up to meet today's demands for her community without a promise of reward, so too do we need to do what's demanded of us now to transform our country for tomorrow's generations.
I think we all should do, like you guys said today, we all should do what we can to change and try to change a kid's life, that he has an option to do something better in his life. And if there's not people like us doing this, what are they going to teach them? Keep together, babe. Keep together the connection, for all you guys, because it feels like, it's one party.
Our work as the ACP will demand discipline, unmatched work ethic, sacrifice, self-critique, and humility. We draw inspiration from community members like Florence, who embody all of these values and attitudes towards community work. We could all learn from and be more like Florence.
Do something and stop talking so much. Talk. That doesn't make the world go round. No. What do? Talk the talk, that's all. That I know I have to be here for a little longer to get things done, Yep. I can't give up. I could have easily gave up in a hospital, all the pain and everything, but I couldn't give up. I had too much work still.
If that doesn't get some hair standing up in your arm, or the movement of some H2O towards the front of your eyes, there's something wrong with you. Maybe communism is not for you. Those last 30 seconds to a minute, my arms were just completely with chills. It's extremely moving. And as I said, that's what being a communist is all about. This lady has cancer. This lady understands that there's not much time left. And what is she doing in that time? Is it like those stories or movies where, old people are given 6 months to live and then they write a bucket list, and the whole bucket list is just traveling and eating and doing this and engaging in sexual intercourse and then doing all these different things to satisfy shallow, immediate pleasures. Is that what she's doing with the limited time that she knows she has? No. She's using the time that she has left to continue what she's been doing her whole life, which is serve the people, serve her community. And you know who also was in a similar situation? Karl Marx. Karl Marx had extremely difficult health conditions towards the end of his life, basically his whole life, but towards the end of his life, his health was really, really tough. But if you read the letters from his daughter and those around him, what they make clear is that this man is basically just surviving because there's more work to be done. He could have gave out and just rested peacefully, but he endured a continual, cumbersome, and painful experience for years so that he can continue working, so that he can continue counseling the working people and socialist leaders that would go to his house periodically to ask him for insights and questions, so that he can continue writing and doing the much necessary work that he was doing in those last few years. So that spirit that drove Marx to stay alive in order to serve, because there's still much work to be done, that's the spirit that guides Florence, and that's the spirit that should guide all of us communists. Shout out once again to ACP Texas for the marvelous work that you did there. I think this is Comrade Corvus, by the way, who was inquiring as to the work of ACP Texas. This right here that you saw, that's what the comrades in Texas are doing. So, all right. Now I want to switch to something that I'm going to try to keep my cool while I react to it, but I might fail and lose my voice. This was in my old treading grounds of Carbondale, Illinois. This interaction that you're about to see is between a 6'6" trans individual who identifies as a woman and Comrade Emery, who, for those that don't know, has been giving out much supplies for, I believe it was the spread of Lyme disease, if I'm not mistaken. It might be something else. Someone put it in the comments if you recall specifically what it is. But for the last month plus, what Emery has been doing alongside Drew, the other comrade in Carbondale, has been giving out supplies for the spread of Lyme disease, which is very prevalent in the Midwest. We have a culture of hiking and stuff and getting into forests, which are conducive to getting bitten by deer ticks and getting Lyme disease. But there was a spread going on in Carbondale, and he bought a bunch of supplies and started distributing them so that they could prevent people from getting those diseases. Bridget said it was the West Nile disease. This is something that's very meaningful for someone like Eddie, who has been so infuriated with this interaction, as we all have, because Eddie spent most of his youth dealing with the effects of chronic Lyme disease. And had he had someone like Emery, who was distributing to his community the things that could help prevent that disease, and not just wait for it to occur and then profit off of the sickness, as the medical, industrial, pharmaceutical complex does. Had he had someone like Emery, maybe he could have been spared a lot of time of pain. Maybe he could have been able to spare his parents, who are working class people through and through and who were struggling, a lot of money from medical bills that accrue because of the fact that we don't have a national health system as most other developed nations do. So we're talking about someone who could have played the role of a hero, and that probably did play the role of a hero for a lot of people in Carbondale, serving them and making sure that they don't end up with diseases that could affect their whole lives and cripple them really, really badly. So keep that in mind, right, as you watch this video.
Look, so here's the thing, Mr. Fascist. Leave me the fuck alone.
You keep tagging me.
I don't tag you in shit. You walked up to me in public. Fuck you.
I just said hello, comrade.
You are not my comrade.
We are. We're comrades. And it's because the capitalists are
No. Fuck you. Leave me the fuck alone.
Why can't we build a working class? Why do you get fascist weapon?
Why are you wearing the equivalent of a fucking swastika on your head with that ACP hat, you fucking fascist?
So explain that to me.
No, there's no debate. Fuck you. No, this is not a good faith conversation. Fuck you.
Okay, so that is definitely the voice of a Cassandra, by the way, guys. In case you didn't know, that's how all Cassandras sound. This shows what we have been saying for a long time. These so-called leftists are just fascists. They're just fascists. What group of people historically has had the purpose in times of capitalist crisis of harassing, attacking, and threatening communists? As these people did, because Cassandra and Cassandra's partner threatened also the life of Emery through a Facebook comment, I believe, if I recall correctly. So what group historically has been tasked with that level of extra legal harassment of communists, like 6'6" Cassandra has engaged in in that video. It's been the fascists. It's been the fascists who attack communists. So just because today, the fascists of today call the communists fascist, that doesn't make them any less fascist. Again, let's go back to what I was talking about earlier today. Do we judge the world on the basis of how people classify themselves? Or do we judge the world on the basis of the actual actions that are unfolding in the world? I don't care what that Cassandra calls itself in terms of political ideology. I don't care if they think they're doing some great anti-fascist deed by attacking Emery and the ACP. They're objectively fascist because they're attacking the one communist party that exists in this country, a party that in their own community was serving the people in order to prevent kids and others from getting chronic Lyme disease and other diseases. A party that has been going out to clean communities that have been abandoned, that have allowed hazardous waste to pile up because the government doesn't care about the people. I've lived in Carbondale for 4 or 5 years. There's a lot of work to be done. And what the comrades Drew and Emery have been doing in Carbondale has been a whole lot. They've been addressing the real needs of these communities. So people who are doing the work of communists are involved in the Communist Party, because there's no other, it's the Communist Party. When you attack them, what are you acting like? You're acting like a fascist. You are a fascist. What makes a fascist is not their self-classification as fascist, is the fact that they are the goons of monopoly finance capital in the periods of crisis of capitalism, and through extra legal means they attack the communists, which are the only people that have the vision and the potential to get us out of the crisis. These people are just fascists. That's it. What happened to Emery was that he was basically assaulted by a fascist. That's how we need to think. These people that are interacting with us, they're not leftists. They're not confused comrades. That's the point of self-critique that Emery made. You know, he called this individual a comrade. No, you can't do that. That's like calling a stormtrooper or something a comrade. No. These are not comrades. These are not comrades. These are enemies of humanity. Why? Because they stand against the people that are fighting to push us into a world free of war, free of class exploitation and class antagonisms, to a world that's actually free, to a world that's actually democratic, so democratic that even talking about democracy is superfluous. They're the ones that are seeking to attack the forces of progress, and in doing so, reinforcing a world where genocides such as those being carried out against the Palestinians happen, where proxy wars, which take the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, such as the one that we're waging against Russia, happen, where the escalations towards a nuclearized third world war and the end of humanity as humanity are in the works. They're the ones defending that world by attacking the people that are putting every ounce of their body and energy and being to fighting for a new world, to organizing for a new world. So these people are just fascist. And how have the fascists been handled in the past? Do we just let the fascists trample over us? No, we stand our ground as Emery did. And we stand our ground in other ways. What you can be sure is that this ordeal in Carbondale is not done. The ACP is going to continue to do the work of communists in Carbondale. We're going to continue showing up for our communities. And no 6'6" Cassandras or anyone else of the like is going to stop us or intimidate us from doing the necessary work that communists need to do in this country. It's that simple. We're going to get the job done, and neither fascists who take the form of Cassandra or fascists who take the form of Nick Fuentes are going to stop us. It's that simple. Whether it's in the coming weeks or in the coming month or whatever it is, just know that our presence in Carbondale will be felt. A Communist Party member is not going to be assaulted by a fascist and have the integrity of the party attacked without some form of response. So that's a non-starter. If you come out against us and you attack us in that form, you gotta expect something's coming back. We do not just let ourselves be trampled on. We do not let ourselves be trampled on. That's impossible. The Communist Party needs to be loved by the people and feared by the fascists. They should think twice. It doesn't matter how many inches past 6 feet tall they are. They should think twice before they mess with the American Communist Party. And we'll ensure that of Carbondale there is made an example. Obviously, everything's going to be within legal means. But just know that actions like these are not just going to be, we're not just, in the sense, we're not Christian. You know, we get slapped, we don't turn the other cheek. We don't turn the other cheek. So, because that would be disrespectful, not just to our members, hundreds of them who have made the party the center of their life's whole purpose, but that would be disrespectful to our class. If we say that we're a party that represents the interests of the American working class, can we also be a party that lets ourselves be stepped on by fascists? Those two things are not compatible. As the comrade there said, we're not victims. We're not now and will never be victims. So, shout out to Emery for all the amazing work he's done. And just know that as he knows this very well, the party has his back. Let's see. Yeah, Emery's one of the nicest people I've met. He's awesome. He's awesome. To talk about Emery as a fascist is to be so completely delusional. Okay, I wanted to answer this question. I'm not familiar with the ACP. Can I ask your position on some points? The withering away of the state. Well, as far as the withering away of the state, we have the standard Marxist-Leninist position, which is the official ideology of the party, stated explicitly in our party's constitution. And the position on the withering away of the state is that the first step in socialism is establishing a dictatorship of the proletariat, which sublates the bourgeois state by abolishing its bourgeois character and superseding it in the form of a proletarian state, dictatorship of the working class. The Chinese have devised the theory that within that stage of socialism itself, there's different stages. We accept that as a genuine contribution to Marxist-Leninist theory, and that at some point in the very remote future, by the very necessity of the development of the class struggle, socialism will win out across the world, and that at some very distant point that we don't think a lot about because it would be utopian to do so. At some very distant point, we understand that once class antagonisms are abolished, along with other superfluities of the class societies, the state itself becomes superfluous, and it withers away. So that's just the standard Marxist-Leninist understanding, and we accept that. Let's see, international struggle. For us, the international struggle is not a separate dimension. For us, the struggle against imperialism is integral to the class struggle within the US itself. This separation, artificial bifurcation that the social democrats make between national policy and international policy, that's bullshit. What we feel here at home as working class Americans is not disconnected from the fact that we live in the belly of the beast, in the center of world imperialism. And the fact that our communities are struggling, our people are indebted and living paycheck to paycheck with crumbling infrastructure, that fact is not disconnected to the 900 military bases we have around the world, to the hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars that we spend in the military industrial complex to keep up America's imperial grip on most of the world. Those two things are not disconnected. To fight one fight, we need to fight the other at the same time. And the third one, the family. Here I have the standard Engels position from the origins of the family, private property, and the state. Part of what communism is going to bring about, the socialist form of life, is an actual adherence to family values. The bourgeoisie says that it likes monogamy, but then in reality, it creates a condition where traditionally the men would just go out and have their fun with multiple women, and then the woman was forced to just be loyal to that one man. Now things have changed, and our society promotes everyone going around and having all the so-called superficial fun that they want. The communist position is to defend the integrity of the family unit as the basic unit of society. So for us, that ideal that Engels saw communism fulfilling of genuine monogamy, of a family premised on actual love, not on an economic unit, that is the position on the family that we communists, we Marxist-Leninists take. All the other nonsense of abolish the family, of overthrow monogamy, and that's all bunk that has been developed by the institutions of the State Department in conjunction with a middle class thing that calls itself left, but that has nothing to do with being left wing. Their revolutionism is reduced to simply seeing any existing institution and negating those institutions. What they fail to realize is that capitalism, as Marx and Engels wrote, already made all that is solid evaporate into air. There's no force that, from the standpoint of their cheap progressivism, is more at the cutting edge of dissolving old social, communal, familial bonds than capitalism. Capitalism is already this process of dissolving any sort of social units, because those social units have the potential of working in a way that's contrary to the logic of capital, to the logic of capital accumulation, to the logic of profit. It's hard when you have strong communal bonds or familial bonds. It's hard to accept the values of a society that say that you have to put at the level of supremacy the accumulation of profit, personal enrichment. So these things that many so-called leftists, who are not leftists, call progressive, which are just really transgressive, right? It's just taking institutions that exist, the remnants of these institutions that haven't been dissolved by capitalism already, and saying, we have to be transgressive and abolish this, abolish that. That has nothing to do with communism. In many ways, that is just speeding up the process of the capitalist dissolution of social bonds that has been ongoing for a very long time, and that Marx and Engels described as that turning of everything that's solid into air. As far as religious freedom, obviously, we strive for a secular state. We don't enforce any religion on anyone, but we are cognizant of the fact that religious traditions are ambiguous. And I think that in our day and age, it is very clear how, on the basis of religious traditions, you can develop a socialist consciousness and an alignment of the socialist struggle with the most sacred and valued of the religious traditions, whether it's in Islam or Christianity or Judaism, what have you. So we're in favor of religious freedom. I hope that helps. Okay. All that is holy is profaned. There we go. Thank you, Boston. That's the explicit quote. Before I get into my next subject of discussion, I wanted to let you all know that I am now going to be teaching from November to February a class on Marxism-Leninism. So, we have to realize that when we go to the academy, when we quote-unquote educate ourselves through the institutions of the ruling class, through the intellectual apparatuses of the ruling class, what we're doing is educating ourselves in their ideas, educating ourselves through their frameworks, which are derived specifically for the sake of reproducing the existing dominant social relations. In order for us to succeed in building working class hegemony, in raising class consciousness, we need to have a core group of vanguard people who are well educated, who know the basics of Marxism-Leninism, and who on the basis of that new genuine proletarian outlook can win over the masses. To do this, we cannot trust in the existing bourgeois institutions. We have to build a form of dual power, an educational dual power. And that's what the Midwestern Marx Institute tries to do through streams like this, and in the most systematized form through our classes. So, as I have connected in the description to this YouTube video and also put in the comments of this live chat, I am teaching a course, a seminar on Marxism-Leninism. It's divided into 2 parts. It's a 4-month course. You can now sign up for part 1 of this course. It's $80 for random, non-party people. If you're in the party, your chapter executive should have sent you a discount code so that you can get a discount for signing up for this course. So if you're an ACP, if you've been struggling with the reading list, I just want to let you know that this class, both this one and the other one, overlaps tremendously with the first reading list. So it might be good to consider signing up for it. So yeah, it's not going to be offered for a very, very long time. If you are in a part of the country where 7 p.m. Central Time wouldn't work for you, you also get the recordings of each class. So that's not only do you get the class and you get to participate, but you get the recording of every single class, which means you can refer back to it at a later date. So sign up if you haven't. I can't urge you enough. This is going to be a very, very important class. And if you're a communist in the U.S. and you have the means, make sure to sign up. It's going to be, essential. And something like this hasn't been done in, since the Communist Party, the old Communist Party's Jefferson School in the 1930s and 40s. So, okay. So that is one thing, one update. The other update, which requires me to move the chair a little bit, is the new issue of the Journal of American Socialist Studies, for whose cover Jordan killed it. Jordan, comrade from Arkansas's Worker, he absolutely killed it with the cover. You can now buy your copy for $15 paperback. I believe it's $15. It might be 20. $20 paperback and $10 ebook. So get your copy now. It's an excellent journal. It's got amazing articles. It's got articles from Eddie and Noah, from Danny, from myself, from Haas, from Jeffrey Kay, who's an amazing historian that uncovers some of the covert actions of the U.S. State Department and U.S. imperialism. It has an article from Tony Montero of the Saturday Free School, an article from Daniel Tutt, an article from Chen, who's our Discord mod. For those on Discord, Chen, he's a comrade finishing his, I believe, his bachelor's in China. An article from Comrade Alex Zambito, who's Southern Catholic Marxist on Instagram, for those that don't know. Let's see. Comrade James Shaney also has Jaime. He also has an article in there that's great. I'm trying to think of if I'm missing anyone else. Marius Trotter has an excellent article here. Stephen Joseph Scott, who's a writer from Scotland, has a great article. Toby Terrar, who's, I believe, an 80-year-old academic who's been writing in journals for like 60 years, longtime communist. He's got an article in here. Ian Hall, who's, I believe, a recently graduated PhD student, has an amazing article. And then, of course, there's Haas's article. I don't know if I got to mention that. So make sure to get your copy. It's I think, my favorite issue to date. So, okay. So now that we got that settled, I do want to take a short little break, 2-minute break. I'm going to play High Sheriff Hazard, and I'll be back to finish out the segment. But it's been almost 2 hours, and I do have to go get some water. So I'll be right back.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said. You look like a Russian, you look like a red. And if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard.
All right, that's a beautiful intermission. It was necessary on my part to recompose myself. I hope you appreciated it. We got to get Jesus Motorcycle making more of these because these are amazing. The next thing I wanted to talk about, what do I want to do next? Okay, I'll do the Boston segment next. I'm going to show you a clip from a street interview video that this gentleman did. He was at a MAGA event, and he was able to interview our comrade Boston, the chapter executive from the Georgia chapter of the ACP. And he gave some great answers. I encourage all of you to watch the full video, but we're going to see here a part of one of his answers. So let's listen in.
So what's the biggest misconception in the mind of the average American toward communism, and why do they cringe about it when you bring it up?
I think the biggest thing is because a lot of these so-called representatives of communism today are these woke, crazy leftists who are flying around these pride flags, only these pride parades. They're just intimidating people. And of course, with the history of it, the biggest thing they say, oh, it killed 100 million people, this, and this. But the reality is that if you look at before these countries were a thing, they were peasant societies. They had no infrastructure. They had nothing. They were backward. They were illiterate. And then the communists came to power, and what do we see? They rapidly industrialized their countries in a very short time, and went on to become great superpowers.
People are scared about, the word communist. You bring that kind of communist, socialist. Oh my God, we can't have that here in America, even though we have elements of that here in America.
Yeah, I think that the problem is there's two types of communism. You have the George Soros communism of the elites, which is Trotskyism, who was kicked out by Stalin and who came here, and now he's behind the neoconservatives, the Democrats. All of these political groups have their origins in Trotsky. And also the woke Marxists have their origin in the Frankfurt School. And this is the whole idea of authoritarianism. It actually comes from the woke leftists who said that, oh, I'm a communist. That's not real communism. China, Vietnam, USSR, these are authoritarian. So that nonsense, the majority of the anti-communist nonsense, comes from the woke leftists themselves, who have been perverting communism, making it no longer about class, but more about these woke cultural issues. So instead of having these multinational monopolies controlling oil, it should be owned by the American people. It should be owned by the American government that is owned by the working class, not our current government that is controlled by the elites.
I don't call it a two-party system, it's a uniparty system.
It 100% is a uniparty, and I do agree with the slogan, Make America Great Again, but I think we can only make America great again with communism.
Interesting. Okay, well, hey, man, I appreciate it. What's your channel?
Well, you can find our website, acp.us. And on Twitter, it's ACP Maine. We've been doing a lot of work recently, just serving the people. Recently with Hurricane Helene, we've raised, almost $10,000 in the past few weeks, giving out resources and stuff to people who are being left behind by the government. We've been serving various communities, cleaning up parks, serving homeless people, just, doing things that the government does not do. And that's what we believe ultimately, is you might not believe what I have to say, but at least look at what we're doing in deed. And what we believe is serving the people. So let us prove to you what we're doing. You don't have to trust us. I understand the skepticism. Communism is a scary word. But at the end of the day, we will prove to you that we serve the working class.
Beautiful. Couldn't have put it better myself. Shout out to Comrade Boston down there in Georgia, our chapter executive of the ACP. I sent him to look for the link to the full one to put on the chat. It's an amazing interview. He did an amazing job. All the other segments from the interview are also great. He stood his ground and he defended the positions of the American Communist Party very well, very convincingly. And I couldn't but help think that the person that was interviewing him was basically sold by the end of it. So with comrades like Boston heading our chapters, we are in good hands. So great work, Boston. Check the comments too. Oh, yeah. I did see the comments in the original one. A bunch of people were hyped up about Boston's answers, and that's the general reply that our line gets. I've been talking to Danny Shaw about this. Those that know that he comes from a different type of left. You know what party I'm speaking of. And he always had difficulties connecting with his brothers who are like, Boston blue collar working class guys, MAGA base workers. And ever since we've been able to to give him almost like a holy baptism or something in American communism, and we've made him a good American communist patriot, he's been able to connect and speak to his brothers much easier. And he was telling me the day of the convention how his brothers are much more sympathetic, infinitely more sympathetic to how he understands communism now than they were prior to that. So it's just the correct line. It's just the correct line. And it's a line that its correctness we're going to prove in practice, as Boston said in the interview. Be skeptical all you want. You can be skeptical all you want, but we'll come back day in and day out to help our communities, to do our duties. And you can continue to hate us, but you're going to have to understand that we're the only force that is serving you and your families and our class in general. So, great job again to Boston. This is the other video I wanted to showcase. This is from an individual. I don't know. They just popped up on TikTok, but this video is excellent at depicting the heroic martyrdom of Sinwar, who was martyred a few days ago. Someone who in many ways represents for the Palestinian freedom struggle what someone like Che represents for the struggle for the liberation of the Americas from the claws of American imperialism. He's someone that, sure, he's not a Marxist Leninist, but who cares? As I said over and over and over in the stream, it's not about what people label themselves. It's about the role, the actions, and the context in which those actions exist. And someone like Sinwar, just like the rest of the leadership of the Axis of Resistance, have been freedom fighters, fighters against colonialism and imperialism. And in that context, they're playing the role of the real movement of history that's pushing history forward and overthrowing, decrepit, parasitic, genocidal imperialism. So they might not call themselves communists, but they're objectively working as the force that communism is. So the martyrdom of Sinwar is akin to that of Che Guevara, who, as Galloway mentioned in his program yesterday, I believe, Che Guevara was displayed after being killed, and he literally looked like Jesus. And he was immortalized in the minds of billions around the world as the incarnation, as the martyr that represents the archetype of the revolutionary, of the person that puts shallow individual desires and aspirations aside for the sake of the struggle for humanity as a whole. And that's Sinwar. In its last moments, he ended up dying as a fighter. He died as a fighter, as a freedom fighter. And that's completely heroic. That is very admirable. You can't call yourself an American patriot, someone who identifies with the revolutionaries who overthrew British colonialism, and look at Sinwar's death and shame it. If you're a genuine American patriot, you have to admire the way that Sinwar lived his life and the way he was martyred, because he was a freedom fighter. In the words of Patrick Henry, he embodied the spirit of I'd rather, be free. I'd rather die fighting for freedom standing than live on my knees or something like that. I'm paraphrasing very roughly, but you can't condemn Sinwar if you admire the founding fathers, because it's a similar fight against tyranny and oppression that carried the spirit of both of them. And I'd like to think that the more progressive of the founding fathers, if they were able to express the same level of radicalism that they did for their time, in our time, they would be doing things similar to those in the Axis of Resistance. And in terms of the US, they would be on our side. So let's see this video from this individual by the name of Dumb Birch Tree, who's not dumb, by the way. This is a good video.
To be honest, you guys, if I was fighting for a revolutionary cause and my last moments were caught on camera and you literally see me sat in military fatigues, my fucking arm severed off with a rifle in a house that has just been bombed, mind you, and the drone is there and I'm sat, and my last effort, my last thing of resistance, my last commitment to the revolution is throwing a stick at a drone, so be it. So be it. Say what you want, hate him, love him, whatever. Keir Starmer would never die on the front lines. Rishi Sunak would have never been there down with the troops on the front. Any military leader ever, any prime minister or political person apart from revolutionaries would never ever be on the front lines. Do you think Biden would be there in his military fatigues fighting drones to the end of time? No. And the fact that they released that footage, that really harrowing footage of his last moments, as if it's like this gotcha, as if that didn't sum up Palestinian steadfastness in its entirety. He's there, arms severed off, still fighting, whilst the IDF literally fight with drones and bombs. And I don't want to hear anything ever again about how they have precision strikes and precision technology, and that's why they massacred 500 people in a refugee camp to kill one leader, because we saw his entire face on that drone. That is the technology that they have been using this entire time. They have known exactly who they have been killing from the jump. From the fucking jump. So every single time they have killed 500, 400, like 1,000 people in one bomb strike, it was fucking intentional. They had the technology to do better.
Yep. It's crazy because part of what they said was that the leaders of Hamas were hiding in tunnels and using people as human shields and away from the front lines. And where was Sinwar? He was like any other soldier with his men fighting, not using any civilians as cover. And he went the way he lived, which was fighting. Irrespective of what you think, even about this genocide, as a human being, to see another human being go out fighting like that, it is admirable. Objectively admirable. You know? What a man does when they're in those moments is a good sign of how what their character is like. There's some, like Mustache Man, who after murdering millions of innocent people and being a bitch to Western financial capitalist interests for his whole life, when the Soviets come knocking on the doors, he just kills himself. It says a lot of their character, of his character. What did Sinwar do? He fought to the end. What did Che Guevara do? He fought to the end. That's how revolutionaries go. So, okay. I have one more video I'd like to show you all, which is actually from Family Guy. So we can end on a softer note today, but not really soft because the message is very deep. But let's listen to this compilation from Family Guy.
Carter, you've discovered the holy grail of modern medicine. Why the hell would you keep it buried like this?
I'll tell you why. Because there's far more money to be made in treating a disease than in curing it. Why cure someone of cancer in a day if we can treat them for a lifetime and bill them every step along the way?
What? That's insane! Carter, what you're doing here is criminal, and I'm going to tell the whole world about it.
Is that right? Who's going to believe you? The internet? You'll be just another nutjob left-wing blogger.
Gentlemen and ladies.
Who says the man?
Okay, sorry. Humans in the audience.
I identify as a basketball.
Humans and basketballs.
I'm a parrot who mimics words but doesn't comprehend them.
Humans, basketballs, talking parrots, and whatever else is out there.
Whatever? It's whoever. Actually, it's whomever. No one likes you, Barry.
All right, just calm down, okay?
Now you're tone policing us.
That makes me uncomfortable. Anything that makes me uncomfortable in 2017 should be illegal.
The key in life is to lie to yourself about reality. Smile through everything. All the bad things, well, you just pile them away in a place that will come back one day in the form of, I don't know, rage?
Carter, you've discovered the holy grail of modern medicine.
There we go. That's Seth MacFarlane at his best. I mean, there's so many components to it. First, the fact that what we have is we call it a healthcare system, but we have a sickness system. If we go all the way back to Hippocrates, the person out of whom we get the Hippocratic Oath, what does he say the purpose of medicine is? You know, not just to treat illness, but to prevent it. And, you know, a lot of countries, specifically socialist ones like Cuba, their healthcare system is aimed at preventative? Why not focus on destroying the conditions for the possibility of sickness itself, right? Such that the ethos, the spirit of medicine, is almost self-abolitional. Medicine, real medicine, in the spirit of Hippocrates, seeks to destroy the conditions which make medicine itself necessary. It's kind of like a communist party. A communist party seeks to eventually develop to a point where it makes even a communist party superfluous because we achieve communism. So like its ultimate aim is something that destroys itself. That's what medicine's aim is, to create the conditions that make medicine ultimately unnecessary because we just live in a healthy society. And some utopian elements of the French Revolution took it so far that they held that the goal of the French Revolution in part was going to be to fulfill the ends of abolishing medicine because they would have already made everyone healthy. So, of course, that's a little bit utopian and out there, but that guiding spirit that is self-abolitional, that's found in medicine when it's guided by the Hippocratic Oath, is in a very explicit antagonism with medicine in the US, which is for-profit, which is commodified. Instead of this self-abolitional purpose, it seeks proliferation. Why cure someone? Why prevent someone from getting sick if the structure of your medical system is for-profit? That's only going to inhibit your ability to derive profit. So we don't have a healthcare system, we have a sickness system. We have a system that prevents the prevention of sickness and that promotes sickness. Because out of that sickness, you profit. It's not profitable to cure someone from cancer or diabetes or whatever it might be when you could just treat them for the rest of their life and make money off of them for the rest of their lives. So what we have is a sickness system. And this is something that most Americans are coming to know. And I think Seth MacFarlane does a great job there. And then how people, there's also the component of how people who bring this to light are shunned by the powers that be, by those institutions that control or seek to control and manipulate how people think. What happened when opioids were being given out by the medical pharmaceutical industrial complex? The people who were critical, who were challenging the claims that these are not addictive, what were they called? They were called opiophobic. They made a specific term, using the term phobic, that no one wants to be called anything with phobic. They made a specific term to lambast the people that were critical of the usage of opioids and who said what has ended up being true, which is that they're addictive and deadly. Today, we live in a world where 70,000 Americans die every year because of overdoses related to opioids, which were promoted by the medical system in cahoots with the government and NGOs and universities themselves and private doctors. All of this is documented. All of this is completely documented. For those interested, the second issue of the Journal of American Socialist Studies, Eddie has an article analyzing the American healthcare system, which is what his master's degree was on, and he depicts all of this. In the article that I wrote for this issue, which is the English translation of a chapter I had in a book that was published in Cuba at the end of last year, in that chapter, one of the things that I touch on is that. So you can also read it in that new issue that I mentioned earlier, this with this beautiful cover. But that's what we have. We have a sickness system. We have a system that instead of promoting healthy lifestyles and curing people in the instances where they do get sick, their sole purpose is profiting, making money off of sick people, making people sick in order to make money off of them. So, and then of course the last part is, the individuals in the crowd saying, I don't identify as a gentleman or a lady. I identify as a parrot. I identify as this, as that. That shows how wokeism in the colloquial sense of how it is used in our day, serves as a reactionary force to sustain the dominant order. Because as soon as the conditions are created for people to coalesce as one, united in order to attack an issue, here comes all of these different tribal factions who need to ensure that their specific idiosyncrasies, which are largely fabricated by the same people who caused the problems, have to be addressed. If not, the person that's speaking is some sort of evil, maniacal fascist, as 6'6" Cassandra told Emery in Carbondale. So they bring these pseudo issues to the fore in order to divide people and prevent them from uniting around what's actually important. And this is made explicit by James Madison in Federalist 10, when he's speaking to the elite who were concerned that formal democracy was going to bring about real democracy. He says, guys, don't worry. The most important and frequently appearing faction is the one between the question of property, between those who own and those who don't. But you know how we prevent that? By factionalizing those who don't, so that they're unable to come together and fight on the basis of the real red line, which is the property question. So that's all they've done. They factionalize us with racism, with all the other isms that aim at dividing people. And today, one of the most dominant forms of factionalization is through wokeism, through this cheap postmodernist tribalism that is fundamentally antagonistic to any form of class politics and to any form of politics that seeks to unite the people around the questions that are really essential, the questions of property, ownership, capitalism, imperialism, etc. Okay, so with that, we have wrapped up our day of work. I want to invite you all again to sign up for my class on Marxism-Leninism. I'm linking it to the chat. We have limited spots, so sign up while you can. There's very few spots left, and the class starts November 7th. It runs all the way to the end of December. So sign up while you can. You're honestly not going to want to miss this class. It's going to be terrific. Also, get yourself a copy of the recently published Journal of American Socialist Studies, the 3rd issue, with a whole host of amazing articles in there so that you can educate yourself and raise your socialist consciousness. And in general, if you want to support the Midwestern Marx Institute financially, you can become a Patreon at patreon.com/MidwesternMarx. If you don't have the means to support us in that form, you can always support us by liking our content, by sharing it, by subscribing, and doing all the other things that you know how to do in order to get the word out. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure. And we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation. Those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor. We defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in a song. So come,